A car travels 55 miles per hour. Write a linear function to represent the situation. Graph the function, and how far will the car travel in 7 hours? So here, let's define the unknown before we write our linear function. So I'm going to let x equals to the number of hours, and y equals to the distance traveled. Okay, so now let's see what's the relationship here. A car travels 55 miles per hour. So in 1 hour, we'll travel 55 miles. 2 hours, we'll travel 110. 3 hours, it would be 165, and so forth. So right now, we need to write a linear function for that. And that would be y equals 55 times x. Because to figure out the distance that we travel, we just have to multiply the number of hours by 55 to get, because it's 55 miles per hour. So this is going to be our linear function. And now they want us to graph the function. So let's create a table to see what order pairs we can use to plot the points. And I'm just going to use 4 this time. Now, for this particular case, because the situation we're dealing with a real life situation and x being the number of hours, is it possible to have negative number of hours? No, not really. Now, in the other examples where we graph the linear functions, I always suggest to use some positive numbers, 0 and negative numbers. However, since we're dealing with a real life situation here, and there is no such thing as negative hours, we don't need to use negative numbers. And also, if you look at the coordinate planes I have right here, it's only on the first quadrant because we won't have negative hours and negative distance. So that's why I'm only focusing on the positive quadrants. So let's use, I could start with 0, 1, 2, 3. So those would be good numbers to use, values to use for x. Now let's plug it in. If you travel 0 hours, obviously you would, travel at 0 distance. For the first hour, you would travel 55 miles. For the second hour, you would travel 110 miles. And then for the third hour, you would travel 165 miles. So now let's graph the function. And I'm going to label the horizontal axis as the number of hours. And then the vertical axis being the distance traveled. And that would be in miles. Okay, so now let's plot out points. Now, I don't need to, because the grids are kind of small, I don't want to, skew my graph to make them very small. So I might move them out, making it 5 apart. So this would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So the increments I'm going up by 5. 70, 80. Will that have enough? Nope, because I need to plot, actually did the wrong thing because this is the number of hours. That should only be from 0 and going up. So I'm going to make this 1, 2, every other one, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then going up, since I have 20 grids, if I go up by 5, that wouldn't be possible. So I'm just going to make each line 10. So this will be 20. I'm not going to label all of them. It's going to be difficult for me to write all of them. So I'm just going to go up by 5. So 1, 2, 3. So this is 50. That's 100. It's 150. That's 200. Okay, so now that I labeled my x and my y axis, let's actually plot out points. So I have 0, 0, and then I have 1, 55, so it'll be right in the middle. Then 2, 110, Then I have 365. So that's 50, 65 would be here. Okay, so now let's draw a line. Now, because we do not have negative hours or distance traveled, our starting point for this line would be at 0, 0, and it just keeps going upward. And usually we would put arrows on both ends, but because there will be no negative number of hours or distance, I'm only going to put an arrow going up. So this would be the graph of the function. Now they ask, how far will the car travel in 7 hours? Now we have two options. We could either use the graph to help us figure this out, or we can plug in 7 for x into the function and calculate. Now if I'm going to use the graph, I would have to look at the 7 hours and then look up vertically until it intersects our graph. Unfortunately, because it would be off of the graph that we have here, the coordinates, right, what we graphed. So what we need to do would be actually plug it into our linear function and figure this out. So since 7 hours has to do with x, we're going to plug it in for the x value. So 55 times 7. And 55 times 7 would be 385. That means in 7 hours, the car will travel 385 miles.